Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Suburban Proletarian. I was contacted a couple of weeks ago by a guy I had never heard of before, a guy named Charles Coffey. And as it turns out, Mr. Coffey is the CEO of a company I had never heard of before, A to Z Composites. And it's actually not particularly surprising that I hadn't heard of Mr. Coffey or A to Z Composites because they're as the name implies, they're a manufacturer that specializes in composite materials, and they're mostly a subcontractor for the aerospace industry and the defense industry and defense aerospace industries. If you look at their website, you'll see they have a pretty impressive portfolio of clients. You'll see names like Bell Helicopter and Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. And so they're a very well-established company, and they really know what they're doing. So when he contacted me and told me that he was thinking about making, or not thinking about, he was actually making a line of carbon fiber parts for the KLR 650, I was immediately, I don't want to say skeptical, but I was puzzled. They're a fairly good-sized manufacturer. They're very well-established. They have big clients, and I thought, okay, what's the end game here? It seems like a strange sort of company to be getting into the aftermarket motorcycle parts business. And secondly, when I think of carbon fiber, I think of race cars, I think of racing bikes, I think of aircraft, I think of racing boats, high-speed stuff, which, I mean, as much as I love the KLR 650, it ain't no race bike. But after I got a chance to talk to Mr. Coffey, it made a lot more sense. Mostly the reason they seem to be doing this is that both he and some of his product development people are just big motorsports fans. And they had the idea to start making carbon fiber motorcycle parts as an OEM supplier for motorcycle manufacturers. But he just didn't seem to be able to find a market, and he thought, why don't we just kind of step out on our own and try it ourselves? And I'm really glad that he contacted me. I did have a chance to talk to him for a while, and Mr. Coffey is a guy who really knows his stuff. I think I was on the phone with him for about an hour, and he went into great detail about different sorts of carbon fiber fabric weaves and braids, using different resins in the carbon fiber for different applications, different molding processes, different heat treatment processes. This is definitely not a startup in somebody's garage, and it's not a Chinese sweatshop just slapping epoxy resin on carbon fiber and draping it over a mold and knocking out parts. I got a very good feeling from Mr. Coffey, and I'm very happy that he contacted me, and I really look forward to collaborating with him in the future. Anyway, these parts are not currently available, or at least they weren't the last time I talked to him. They will be available through A to Z Composites website. They're setting up a motorsports tab where you'll be able to buy these things directly. But I was very lucky to have been sent a few samples of parts. There's more stuff coming out. This is what they have finalized at the moment. Again, I don't think it's quite ready for sale yet, but I'll go over the parts that he sent me now, and I'll go over some other things, or at least one more thing that will be coming out, and I'm very excited about that. So the parts that are already pretty much finalized and ready to go, the smallest and simplest one is a replacement cover for the rear master cylinder. This one is, the factory one is just made out of molded plastic, and it's kind of flimsy and flexible. So there's a carbon fiber part for that. They also are making carbon fiber fairing side covers. That's these plastic guards that cover the attachment points for the crash bars on the Adventure model, and then they're just basically covers on the Traveler model and the Standard model. So we've got carbon fiber replacements for this. and also a set of carbon fiber fork guards. These are very thin carbon fiber, but very high modulus. They're extremely stiff, very light, and I believe these just snap on over the front forks to protect the aluminum forks from stone chips and things like that. These will be interesting to put on as well. The thing that's exciting me the most, and I discussed it with Mr. Coffee at some length, is a skid plate. Now, I've never heard of a carbon fiber skid plate before. I've only ever heard of aluminum or steel. Of course, the factory one on the KLR is just plastic, and I was going to buy an aluminum one from Ricochet or Tusk or somebody like that, Happy Trails. And I'm kind of glad I didn't, because Mr. Coffee is going to be sending me a carbon fiber skid plate, and I'm very anxious to check that out. When I first thought about it, I thought, carbon fiber for a skid plate? But it kind of makes sense. It's lighter than aluminum. It's as strong as steel. And I was one of the first things I asked Charles about when I talked to him on the phone, and he told me about running racing boat hulls over volcanic reefs with minimal damage. So I think if a racing boat hull can stand up to it, I think the skid plate on the bottom of a, whatever this is, 400-pound motorcycle can handle it. So I'm just really excited about this. I look forward to what's coming in the future. Now, I know you didn't just tune into this just to see me talk about a phone conversation I had, so I don't want to gloss over any of this. I'm going to make a series of videos. I'll dedicate a video to the installation of the fairing covers, and I'll dedicate another video to the fork guards, but I thought I'd probably ought to install something in this video. So we're going to go ahead and install this rear master cylinder cover. So let's adjourn to the shop, and we'll take a look at this. We'll take a look at the instructions that are included in here, and we'll get this mounted up on the side of the bike. So as you can see, here's the factory cover. This is just injection molded plastic, and it's kind of flimsy. Looks like it's probably made from polyethylene or polypropylene, nothing too fancy. So we're going to go ahead and install the new cover, which is here, our carbon fiber cover from A to Z Composites. Simple packaging, straightforward and to the point, perfectly sufficient for motorcycle parts. We've got some nylon washers in here. We're going to reuse these screws. The instructions for installation are inside the packaging here, and they're pretty straightforward. Remove factory cover and retain bolts. Clean assembly grease from bolts. Install the white collared nylon washer and a black washer. Position cover, insert bolts with black nylon washers. Tighten evenly to avoid binding. Careful not to over tighten. So that's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off, and then we'll install the new one. These are 5mm Allen drive bolts, by the way. Just for fun, and because carbon fiber is often touted for its weight-saving abilities, I did weigh both of these parts on my postal scale, so admittedly not super accurate, but as near as I can tell, the carbon fiber cover from A to Z Composites weighs just about exactly an ounce, and this flimsy piece of plastic actually weighs about 1/10 of an ounce more. So there you go. That's probably at least another 5 miles per hour, right? Okay, so in order to assemble the new cover to the bike, we've got these little white nylon washers, and they are collared ever so slightly, as you can see in the video there, and those fit into the holes thusly. Then there are black nylon washers. They're going to go over these
bolts. And the bolts will come up through the holes, and then the whole thing gets assembled to the bike. But it's clearly going to be too difficult to do that on camera. So let me get it installed, and I'll be right back. All right, so that's what she looks like all mounted up. I think it's an improvement over this plastic piece. You can see it's quite a bit taller than the plastic piece, so it provides more protection to the shaft coming from the master cylinder down to the brake lever. There's plenty of clearance here. There's no impedance of movement or anything like that. And it's definitely quite a bit stiffer than the plastic piece. Now, do keep in mind, the KLR 650 is a thumper. There's lots of vibrations. And these screws, or any screw on the KLR 650, does have a tendency to vibrate loose over time. There's an old joke about the KLR 650 that went something like, KLR stands for keep Loctite ready. So now that I have this mounted, and specifically because there was an admonition in the instructions not to over tighten these screws, I'm gonna back each of these out, put on a single drop of blue thread locker, and run them back into a reasonable tightness. And I think it's pretty cool. It looks neat, it's stiff, it's 1/10 of an ounce lighter, and I don't think it's too flashy. I mean, it's still black. It's definitely shinier than the plastic part, but this is not a very high gloss finish. I think it looks great. I think it will protect very well, and it gives the bike a bit of a unique look. So I'm going to start working on the next video. I'm going to get this one posted up, and I hope to see each of you on the next one. Later, guys.